creativity and ideas do not happen in a vacuum.
Really, like the superpower that helped me write a lot of books was
activate your energy.
Welcome to the Activated Authors Podcast, a show where we distill the core principles of what it takes to become a happy, healthy, and productive author, no matter what stage of the journey you're at. I'm your host, Daniel Willcocks. I'm an international best-selling author, as well as an author coach, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. But most importantly, I'm a lifelong student of all things productivity, psychology, and human behavior. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Without further ado, let's dive in.
What is up, Activators, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Activated Authors Podcast with myself, Daniel Willcocks, and here with me every single week is
me, Sam Frost. That's me. Hello. Hi.
Hello, Sam Frost. What's going on?
So much. Yeah, no, good, but also horrible. I've done that thing where someone says, "How's it going?" and I'm so used to that being the modern equivalent of hello.
Yeah.
That I just reply, "Yeah, good." No, this week's been horrendous, actually. Due to some kind of logistical error in the delivery of my very essential mental health medications, I've been off meds. I realised, because I sat down and tried to figure out when was the last time I took a pill, since the last time I took my tablet was Saturday evening. Yeah.
That was bigger than previously suspected.
Yeah, which explains a lot, actually. And now this was not by choice. I am not one of these people that demonizes head meds. In fact, I think they are fucking amazing. There was some kind of mix-up in the prescription was filled and it was sent out, because I get mine delivered because it means I don't have to deal with people in Boots. I don't know if every Boots pharmacy is the same, but mine is not the one. And there was some kind of delay or mix up in it getting from where it was to me. It's difficult to explain because most tablets, if you miss them, it doesn't have that much of an effect, but these are incredibly potent second line mental health, mental illness meds. And you get, if you miss it for one day, you get sick. And by sick, I'm talking about an addict withdrawal, because your body is addicted to it. It needs it to function. And that's the best part of the withdrawal, is the physical symptoms. My brain has been just a fog. I have been all over the spectrum emotionally. It's been really difficult, to say the least. But the good news is that finally I got them delivered to me today, which is Thursday, and I took my pill about 3 hours ago. So I'm starting to come around. Unfortunately, they're slow release. So
that's what you need.
It's taken
good old slow release.
Yeah. But that's kind of been my week, and I've just had to down tools and accept the fact that even if I wanted to be a taskmaster to myself, there is no point, because I would quite literally just have to do it all again. And I'm not doing that. So that's where I'm at. There has been nothing in my life that has, been big or bad or anything like that. It's been very difficult to function at all because of that. So that's not been great. But modern medicine's wonderful, and I've taken it now. And shortly, I shall return to my wonderful normal self. I use normal relative to who I am and not to the general bell curve. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, you already sound better.
Yeah,
and that's not foregoing that I've done bits and pieces this week to move some stuff along that you've been working on. It's been cool, but yeah, I can imagine it's tough as hell to go through that kind of stuff and just keep moving. So the idea of downing arms and giving yourself what you need in that moment to quote function.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's been a sucky week for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mine's not much better. I am capital E exhausted. I will forego some of the things that I want to say because it is half term, and as such, I have a little human who is currently watching TV and stuff. So if you hear additional sounds and things somewhere on the feed, that is why. But yeah, there's yeah, I've had to manage my workload somewhat in order to deal with some things, which with any luck next Thursday or next week's podcast, I should be able to give a little bit more detail, but I won't given present company. But suffice to say, like, I mean, I've been smart enough to juggle my calendar from the start of the year to take into account half terms and things. And during half terms, like, they're now what I call sort of minimum viable work weeks. Mm-hmm. So knowing that I have, responsibilities and parental cares and things, like, I've made sure as much as possible to not book in things for this week, to only like be on very skeletal basic function business wise, because like I can't really afford to take it off because I have regular obligations. But at the same time, I'm not going to like, constantly be at the computer when I've got little ones. So yeah, making it work. I saw my parents for a couple of days. That was quite nice. I got my first review back from a reader for the Nowhere line, which again, for people interesting, even though I'm looking at putting this forward for potentially small press or like some kind of press publication, I still want to know that I've done a good job before I've handed it over. And so like I'm getting sort of feedback before I even start pitching it out to people, just to make sure that not only is it solid, but I do also think that going to the right people and getting some kind of reviews is going to give it some kind of gusto behind it getting accepted before anyone even looks at it. So that's been very, very nice from that side of things. And then also I will add, I'm working on projects at the minute that I hate. There's one thing like I'm learning over the last few years, the amount of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you just can't talk about until it's somewhat ready. What I will say is at this point, I am currently working on the story for the Other Stories podcast's Halloween special, which is a lot of fun. Yeah. And I've been doing a lot of brainstorming and I've sketched an outline for the story, and it's all very, very exciting. And I've just got to, get fingers to keyboard and start writing that. But yeah, like creatively, it's very fulfilling at the minute. I've got a lot of cool projects that I'm involved in. They're all just sort of chipping away and chugging along. So yeah, that side of things is quite nice, all things considered. So yeah, keeping it moving.
What is a key takeaway that you've got for this week, Dan? You weren't expecting that, was you? You was going to throw it to me, but I got in there like the lightning bolt that we are brandishing on our shirts. Here comes Sam's not on her meds. Lightning is part of our logo.
My key takeaway this week particularly is that it's already there. Like, you get to, so again, like I get that it'll be frustrating listening to this and kind of being like, well, he keeps talking about it, but like what the hell's going on? And like, it's not huge. Well, it's huge, but like I'm fine, and I'll probably talk about it more next week. But the key takeaway, I guess, is that like, it's that thing, if you get to a point where you try, like, something in life presents itself to you, and you try and find all the different possible scenarios and people and all the different things to try and fix whatever, and then every single time it boils down to like whatever it is that is needed to conquer the thing, it's already in you. Mm-hmm. Like, it's already there somewhere. It's just finding it, harnessing it, like bringing it back to the surface again. It's already there. So like, I have not entirely been feeling myself through a lot of like the things over the last few weeks. And even today I had a moment where I was sitting in my kitchen and I was like, it felt for the first time in a while like I was in my kitchen. You know what I mean? Like those moments where suddenly like,
it's called disassociation.
Yeah, I get it, a fair chunk. But yeah, it was the first time in a while that like I stood there, I was like, oh, okay, like I'm here, I'm sorting things out, and like, general life stuff. So yeah, that's my takeaway. Whatever you need, and bringing Tran into writing and creation, because obviously activated authors, like it's the same with writing. Whatever it is you feel like you need to get started and to start writing, it's already there. Like if you've got 5 fingers, awesome. I mean, preferably have like 8 fingers and 2 thumbs, but if you don't have them, there are other methods like dictation and ghostwriting and that kind of stuff. But yeah,
Stephen Hawking wrote many books.
He wrote a lot of books,
and he could barely speak, let alone do anything else.
Yeah. How about you? What's your key takeaway?
So I'm trying to find a way to phrase this without making me sound incredibly pompous and arrogant.
Do it.
Compagant, yes. I was in the bath earlier, as one is wont to do every now and again, and I was having a little think.
Reeks of privilege. Go on.
Well, I reeked to something, mate. That's why I was in the bath. And I was having a little think about this week and how difficult it's been. And I'd like to remind myself, if I start to kind of think negatively, if this was happening to a friend, what would I say? And if this was happening to a friend and they had handled themselves the way that I'd handled myself this week, I would say to them that, like, you're a goddamn legend. And that's what I mean about it sounding pompous. But I'll tell you as for why. Because this week I've been at my worst. And I don't mean like, being an arsehole or anything, but I have had no filter. None. I don't operate like, filter doesn't come as standard for me anyway. Like, it takes a lot of effort for me to remember that not everyone needs to hear the truth as I hear it in my brain. But like, it was the case of like, I couldn't even remember that I was supposed to engage a filter. I could barely move for like yesterday. Every time I stood up to walk, like just little distances, because I walked 12 kilometers yesterday because I could do nothing else other than put one foot in front of the other. And for the most part, I stayed upright, but just little distances in my house. As soon as I stand up and try to move, it was like someone was grabbing my shirt and yanking me back. So lots of like stuff, going on, not being able to kind of really do just the basic things. And yet my son was still fed and he still got to school on time and his homework was still done and he still knew that he was loved. And I still like drew and did other things, and my dog still got fed and walked and loved. And not once did it occur to me to fall back on any old behaviors. Now, that could be because not a lot was occurring to me at all. But it's just that case of, at my worst this week, I have still proven myself to be better equipped at life and most importantly at parenting than like my father ever was at his best. Like, he couldn't come close. Him and my stepmom couldn't come close to what I did this week. So it's just that, like, sometimes you need to sit in the shit to realize like where you are and how far you've come. So yeah, that's my key takeaway.
So pompous.
My dad sucks. All this to say, my dad sucks.
And I'm a pompagant.
And I'm a pompagant legend.
Legend, there you go. Bam. Oh, win from the community. This is something,
yes, please.
For the first time in a while, I have not actually pre-prepared. So I'm going to quickly jump over. Fill in some time.
Well, that's because we've been talking about flash fiction the last couple of weeks, hasn't it? So it's come out of like the routine of going through.
Yes. So let's grab one from here.
I'm going to edit this and it's just going to be perfect. You're going to be like, win from the community. Bang.
Don't bother. Don't bother.
Yeah, I'm not going to. I've got too much to do, if I'm honest.
Let's go to Karl Hughes, who has handed in something for every single day of Flash Fiction February. And what else we got here? Nearing the end of Act 2 on the Steampunk, and made it to the gym to check it out. They have a hydro massage bed, and it's a new goal for when I'm done working out. Bam, love it.
Also, on Carla, can we just talk about the fact that like it was so refreshing to hear what she said in sprints today? This isn't personal, so I'm hoping she won't mind sharing. I will check before I put this in the podcast. But she was talking about the fact that, like, because you asked how her novel was getting on. And she said, oh, okay, I'm in, like, the
muddy middle.
The muddy middle, that's it. I'm in the muddy middle. And I just have to keep reminding myself that it's a first draft and it's supposed to suck. And that I'm, like, celebrating myself in my suckiness and getting through it. And it was one of those wonderful moments of, like, not only someone fully owning the fact that like right now it's not where I want it to be, but also right now it's not supposed to be where I want it to be. And it was just like a wonderful thing of, I was like, this is our community. Like, people are really starting to get it, and it's a testament, I think, to like what you preach.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely true. And actually some of this will come into a little bit of what we're talking about very, very shortly. But yeah, like you say, just owning that. And it's hard because, you know, we always want to write well and we want to write good.
Yeah, of course.
And so acknowledging in the middle, like getting, because that was really like the superpower that helped me write a lot of books, was get to the point where as I'm writing, I'm literally just, you shut off that critical thinker, you shut off the editor, and you literally just like, I remember typing and just staring at the keyboard, not even looking at the words on the screen, and just having those moments where I'm like, and then this happens, I guess, probably something like that. And like, it's not perfect, it's not good, but again, like the whole point is to build a foundation which you can then edit and make magic. And it just rarely happens in a first draft. Like those who write very clean first drafts are people that have written a lot and have written regularly and have built that muscle. Know. Well, yeah, arguably, like I've gotten to the point where my first drafts are a lot cleaner than they used to be. Like, again,
I mean, over 4 million words written, that's going to happen.
It's going to do that. Well, more than that, but that's published. But like, again, that first book that I wrote, 17 drafts, rounds of edits that went through, like mostly self edits and things, but like that took a while. And then like the next book with me and Luke, that was back and forth about 5 or 6 times. And obviously, like the advantage there was that we each have a different perspective with each round of edits that we did. But yeah, like it really does take time and practice to get to a point in which you're comfortable and owning who you are as a writer. Because again, like part of the reason that my first drafts tend to come out clean, because I embrace the fact that I'm somewhat of a pantser.
Yeah.
Whereas like I know that the ones that I've planned are the ones that I always feel more clunky about. Because if I'm pantsing, for me, it feels like as I'm writing, I'm feeling the flow, I'm feeling the ups and downs. I'm like, okay, in a film right now, I go down on the roller coaster and then I come back up. Whereas if
that was going,
now I go down on the book. Then if I'm planning, which I have had to do, and I have had to write to outlines and things, you know, I ghost wrote for 3 or 4 years. It very much feels like, okay, I'm putting bricks into a wall, but then I'm not sure entirely if they're fitting in the right ways, because I'm not feeling like that start to finish flow. So again, like some people write out a sequence, some people need that planning. But yeah, the fact that, you know, Carla's fantastic. It just, you know, her process seems, and her mindset seems very, very strong and consistent at this point. And she really is coming into her own as a writer. So like, Carla, if you listen to this, we love you and congratulations.
Yeah. And if you're not,
what are you doing? I'm gonna send you just this clip.
Carla, stop being a dickhead.
Oh, what a layabout.
I'm teaching and I'm also writing books. Whatever, Carla. Get over yourself.
Also, I'm very aware of people watching YouTube. This won't affect podcasters, but it's getting dark outside, which means my camera's getting more and more like hot, which means I'm getting like shinier and more orange.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm getting pinker and paler, and you are getting...
I'm on a tanning bed at the minute. But you can't see it just off camera. Just
like orange and shiny.
It's sweat.
Yeah. If you don't watch it and you're just listening to it, we are in a professional studio right now, fully lit properly and
totally lit,
glamorous.
What?
AF. You don't need to
lit
check
AF.
it.
Hey,
you don't need to check it. Just believe.
And that brings us neatly into this week's question, which is your question, Sam.
Yes, it is. And my question is, where'd you get your ideas from?
I'm gonna say, just because I always default to it. Like, there's a very famous interview with Stephen King where he's talking about this, and he's just like, I don't know how to answer this. I always tell people I just buy them at the idea shop. They just walk in like, I need an idea, please. Exchange it for some money. Thank you. Walk out. And that's
the problem, right?
It's a problem. And I tell you what, there's a lot of different factors to this. So like the very flat, easy answer is ideas come from you.
Mm-hmm.
They come from your mind. They come from you. And what I think people are trying to ask with this is, where do good ideas come from?
Yeah, maybe.
So when people are like, where do ideas come from? Like, we all, like, everyone's had an idea for a book. Everyone's just like, oh, what if Jaws did this? Or what if this did this? Or like, oh, a really quiet book. Like, I literally had someone email me the other day. I really need to email them back saying, I've had an idea for a book, but I don't know how to write it. Do you want it? And I was like, well, that's very, very kind of you. it's going to be a polite no, but like I really appreciate that someone did reach out and do that. But like I think that's really what people are asking is like, where do good ideas come from? Because if you're asking where ideas come from, it's because you have some kind of intention of writing a story. And if you're writing a story, it's probably because you've got an end goal somewhat of writing a book, making money, like reaching readers, whatever that goal is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side of this as well is that when it's how do you write a good story? Oh, this is quite a big I'm just trying to think of how to say it. We are taught, and we've covered this a lot on this podcast, but we are taught from very, very early on, for some reason, that art is a thing that you're born with or you're not.
Yeah, gosh, yeah.
And so I know a lot of people who have these ideas, but what they then do
is a gift from God, Dan.
It's a gift from God. I know lots of people who have ideas, but then what they tell themselves, or the voices they hear from like wider society, is, yeah, but you can't write a book.
You're not a writer.
Or, oh, that idea has been done before. Or, whatever that is. And so as a basis, as a foundation for this conversation, that I think is probably the best place to start. Is like, all right, if we're asking the question, where do good ideas come from? And it's all the same answers. Like I'll add that as well, just for free, throw that out there. There you go, get your money's worth for this podcast. But like it's all the same answer, but I think that's the question that people are asking. But peel it back, where do ideas come from? Fundamentally at their core, ideas come from you. There are sort of three that I've listed off the top of my head that contribute, or three areas that contribute towards coming up with ideas for things like stories and whatnot. Number one is experience, number two is curiosity, and number three is stereotypes. So experience, kind of self-explanatory, but experience is essentially anything that you've done in your life, whether you're working full-time, whether you're a stay-at-home mum, whether you're a stay-at-home dad, whether you are squishing the dog.
Perfect timing, small child.
Yes. Whether you are, I don't know, like a runner, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a crocheter, whether like no matter what it is, you have lived a life and you have an experience that is unique to you and a lens through which you're seeing that experience, which is unique to you. And that's something a lot of people don't understand. Like, because I know a lot of people who never quite went into quotes traditional careers and therefore feel like they have less value to provide into things like books.
Oh my God, it's like you're talking to me. Yeah.
Hey. And so that's the experience side of things. It's like all of these things that you've done, they contribute to a story. So you can write from your own experience. You can come up with ideas from your own experience. And you can tell that, whether that's like memoir, fiction, non-fiction, like whatever, experience is unique to you. And I think we've said this on like nearly every episode, but that is the heart of your story, is your experience, your lens, what it is that you've been through, whatever that situation is, you can bring that to a story. And I think that's magic. The second part, as I say, curiosity. So curiosity comes from, asking questions and just seeing where things go. So like I shared last year, I've taken a real interest lately into the human timeline, like Homo sapiens to now. And in following that curiosity, I've learned about like 1,000 different wars and conflicts, how agriculture developed, cognitive development, like capitalism, all these different things have sprung up of a simple question of like, where did we come from? And again, like this isn't to sort of put friction against people with different beliefs and whatnot. This is just something that I'm looking into. And so that curiosity and just asking questions, that then creates more questions. It's really like a hydra of ideas, because it's like, I don't know, like one this I always come back to this and it kills me, because like I remember once looking out of a car window at a city I was driving by, and the question was literally like, how much of what I'm looking at is natural, was originally here like 400 years ago? Like if you look at the lights, if you look at the metal, if you look at the glass in the windows, if you look at like the sidewalk, if you look at the road, all these are like, how much of this is natural? And the answer is like none of it. So then immediately from there, I get questions of like, well, what would happen if like nature retook over? And like,
well, it's constantly trying to.
Yeah. Or like, what would happen if, I don't know, it's a stupid idea, but again, like we're talking about ideas here. Like, what happens if the world ran out of tarmac? What will you use for roads? Because have you ever looked at a road and gone like, do you know how many miles of this stuff there is? Where does it come from?
It's insane, right?
What is bitumen?
Well, I've known a few in my time.
But like, these are questions and these are foundations that can start to like stir up ideas and give you things. And so curiosity can take you very, very far. Like that's one of again, like this is quite grotesque side of things, but that's one of the things about horror. Like it's asking questions that other people are a bit afraid to ask. With romance, you're asking questions about different people's love lives and the nature of romance and all that kind of stuff. Like it's all, a lot of the ideas come from the gaps between knowledge. Because if you're curious about something, you're hungry to find out more, and you deliver that authentic experience to the reader. So experience, curiosity, and then the other one is stereotypes. So already in the world are 1,000 different stories, well, millions upon millions of different stories, more growing every day. Whether that's, you know, real life stories in newspapers, whether it's your soaps, Coronation Street, EastEnders. I won't explain what soaps are for US listeners. Please just look that up yourself, because I hate them. You've got films, you've got TV shows, you've got books, you've got novels, you've got like all these different mediums of where stories come from, and they are already like things that you can grab out, that you can start to manipulate to make new stories. Now I'll pause there before I get into like some more stuff, but yeah, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I've got so much I want to add on that. So first of all, what you said was you think people are asking where do good ideas come from. And you know, I agree with that. I think that this question is asked roughly by two sects of people. You've got bad interviewers,
yeah,
right, that think that for some reason asking this question is going to like blow the world open. Answer. And then you've got people that are genuinely wanting to know, because they are interested in the creativity of whether it's writing, art, dance, whatever. Where do you get your ideas for these incredible like choreography pieces? You know, where did Cujo come from? Where, like, how do you get
I know
these?
That story.
Yes, so do I. Well, believe it or not.
I know of the origin of.
Yeah, same.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. Like, you know, where do these huge mammoth, like behemoth ideas that are stunning come from? But of course, people are seeing, first of all, something in its final form.
Yes.
So anything that you see, the idea that created it is a tiny seed that the person that has then gone on to do it has nurtured and, you know, done the what ifs and all that kind of stuff. But I would say as well, like, there are so many ways of generating ideas, and I think it's a bit of a crime the way when people are genuinely asking this question out of a need to know, or a want to know, or a feeling of, can you tell me where your ideas come from, because I don't know if I have any. I don't like this instant knee-jerk response of, I get them from the idea shop. Because like, for an interviewer that's just bad at their job, sure, that's funny. But for people that are genuinely like wanting to know, I kind of feel sorry for them, because it's that thing of like, in creativity, I would say there's no mistakes, there's just happy accidents, there's no stupid questions or anything like this. But it becomes this almost this stigma of just kind of like, I don't know how to do this, I don't know where to get ideas from, and I want to do this stuff. And then often they're met with sarcasm, or just like,
I bake a cake, buy a cookbook.
Yeah, like, cool, thank you, thanks, dickhead. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's true, you could buy a cookbook, but like, you could also be a little bit more helpful and less flippant. So like, I have like a host of different things here that can help people generate ideas that I've used myself, and some that like I just kind of thought of. But I love this idea of curiosity, because I think that is the biggest generator of ideas.
Yeah, my old English teacher once took, because I remember being in it was at college, and I was in a what's the word, a module in which we were reading stuff that just really like I couldn't be bothered with, and I said like, miss, it's boring. And she said to me like, if you start reading into something, the more you read it, the more questions you ask, the more interesting it becomes. And at the time it was one of those things of like, yeah, right, miss. But like, the older I get, the more I'm like, it absolutely is. The more like you become the dog that holds on to that rabbit and doesn't let go. Like, you just find more and more questions, more and more things, like your mind gets more and more blown. And yeah.
And the last thing I'll say before we kind of start giving examples and all the rest of it is that kind of bouncing off this idea of you're either born a musician or you're not. You're either gifted with like the muse of writing or you're not. Number one, that's absolute bullshit.
Yep.
Like absolute bullshit. Like, are there some people in this world that are just more naturally inclined towards things?
Yes.
Absolutely. That's where we get prodigies from. But I can tell you something for nothing. Not everybody is a fucking prodigy at something.
Nope.
If that's how life worked, you're either born a plumber or you're not. You're either born a fucking surgeon or you're not. Number one, mortality rates would be through the roof. Like, I don't need to trade. I was born a surgeon. Like, no, please. Before you cut into me, I would quite like you to understand what, like, you know, the renal system is. The other thing is, so like, just get rid of that, because it is very difficult to call yourself something. Like, just saying I'm an author, I'm a writer, something I find very difficult to say when like I'm sketching or drawing and someone's like, oh, you're an artist. I'm like, no, no, I'm not an artist. I like to draw and I'm getting better at it, but no, like, I'm not an artist. And the more I think about it, it's the exact same thing, just on the other side of it. Like, yeah, I am an artist. I draw and I paint. I'm not saying I'm Van Gogh, but like, there's lots of things. But the main thing that I would like to say to assuage this and to kind of prove my point is that creativity and ideas do not happen in a vacuum. And while ideas come from you, they also absolutely don't.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, there are those like rare jewel moments where you'll just wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, this idea.
Oh yeah, they're amazing when that happens.
And you write it down, but that's not how 99.9% of ideas happen, because creativity cannot exist in a vacuum, because creativity is, in my opinion, a way of interpreting and communicating the world around you through a lens that is uniquely yours. So yeah, that's out of the way.
before you jump on, just because that does absolutely kill me when like you say, people aren't born to do XYZ. Like, I really contest this point as well, just because no matter what, like, again, like what faith you believe in, what background you believe in, no matter where your kind of foundations of humanity come from, even if you go back looking traditionally like Christianity 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ, all that kind of stuff, there weren't really playwrights. Like, there weren't really plumbers as we know them. There were no heart surgeons. There were no like cat cafes. Like, you weren't born to run a cat cafe. Do you know what I mean?
JC hanging out in the cat cafe.
Yeah, like these things aren't like progress has bred us to get to where we are, and like we develop that interest, we get into the things, and just because we find an affinity for the thing doesn't mean necessarily we're born to do a thing. Like, through my life, I've been a parkour coach. I have been a chlamydia screening assistant. I have, worked in a bar. I have done publications and marketing. I'm doing this. Like, all of these things, when I'm doing them, I feel like I'm born to do them because I give them everything.
Yeah.
There's no truth to me going like, well, I was born to free run. Like, parkour didn't, quotes, exist until 2001. 2005, I think it was. But yeah, like, as we know it now, parkour did not really truly exist. And so how arrogant would it be for me to be like, I was born to be a parkour instructor?
Yeah.
Wait, this word only like came around about 2 years ago. So yeah, as you were.
And it holds to the point of, the more you look into something, the more you do something, the more passionate you get about it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've got a list here of like cool and fun things that you can do that will help generate ideas. And like, hand on heart, I would say I've done about at least 70% of these. So these are like essentially writing exercises. I hate that term because it just sounds so dry, but that you can do that don't necessarily take that long, that will help your brain start to get into the workout mode of coming up with ideas. Because like everything else, and you spoke about this, specifically on the Thomas Fenton episode, actually, about creativity being a muscle, and the more you use it, the better it gets.
Hence writing exercises.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna list some of these off, and then I'll stop and let you talk, and we'll do the back and forth thing. So one of the first things I ever did, and I cannot remember for the life of me where this came from. It was like an online course, like a free thing, or like I watched a YouTube. I can't remember, but one of the ways to create ideas for characters, which can be overwhelming to say the least, because you're trying to create an entirely full human being that lives and breathes and readers will fall in love with or hate, or whatever. It's a challenging thing. Like, I still don't know fully who I am. How the fuck am I supposed to create a 3D person? So as with any kind of creativity, when you're first starting with something, it's very difficult to know your process, your voice, your anything like that, because you don't have one yet. So there are obviously lots of things that you can download off the internet, character sheets, all that kind of thing, that ask like 500 different questions. But it can feel very overwhelming and very like intimidating, and like, I don't know this. I downloaded this because I thought it would help. I don't know where they went to school, like But what we are very good at as humans is judgment. Silently judging people. Someone walks past you, you see their face, and you're like, I know who you are. So a good way, and a fun way, and a slightly reprehensible way of creating characters, just for like, to begin with, just as like character studies and that kind of thing, go to a coffee shop or a restaurant or a park or somewhere that you feel comfortable being. Take a laptop or a pen and paper. This one doesn't lend itself well to dictation because you'll probably get thrown out. And sit down and just look around you. Look around you at the people there. And if it's empty, look at the people that are working there. And just pick one person and think to yourself, who are you? And then start noticing things about them. Is their nail polish constantly chipped? Is their hair been washed? Do they smell of perfume or body odor? Like, do they do their work with an efficiency, or are they clearly not wanting to be there? Do they spend more time looking at their phone than the customers? And if it's like someone sat down, like, are you married? Are you happily married? Like, what's your financial situation? Look at their clothes. Are they new? Are they frayed? Like, do they have stains all over them?
What are they reading?
What are they reading? What are they doing there? Are they sat by themselves? Are they sat with someone else? If they're sat with someone else, are they listening to that person? Or are they waiting for their turn to talk? Or are they completely checked out? Because all of these things, it's instinctive in us, generally speaking. Obviously, taking into account neurotypical and atypical brains. It's wired in us as a protection thing to notice this stuff at lightning speed, but we very rarely listen because we don't need to. We did it unless your body and brain is like threat, you dismiss. But if you just sit down and really drink someone in, then write it down, and then just do that a few times with different people. And then once you've had a little bit of a break, go back to that person, read what you've written, and flesh it out a bit based on the type of person you think that person is. Because we've all met that guy. We've all met that woman. We've all been made to feel special by that one person that seems to like actually enjoy their job. And so like, why do they enjoy their job? Or do they, but they're just being really sweet and kind, and actually their life is miserable, and this is the only time that they can give joy to somebody. And by asking those questions, by being curious, you start to create a crew of characters. And then when you've got like a few, throw them in a lift together and make the lift break. It's about like having fun with it. And this is what I mean by like creativity doesn't happen in a vacuum, and nor do ideas, without this constant input of everything around us that most people will walk past because life is busy. You don't notice the ideas, but they're there. And it's not cheating to use the world as inspiration, because I guarantee you, if you were born in a sterile thing that, and somehow, like, you know, all of your essential bodily functions were met until you died, but you never saw anyone else, like, Shakespeare would not have written a fucking word.
I'd read that story.
But do you know what I mean? Like, nothing happens in a vacuum, and every like leap of progress in humanity is based on what someone has done before that person.
Yeah,
like
standing on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly. Like, if we didn't have electricity, we wouldn't have Apple, and no one would give a shit about Steve Jobs or his turtlenecks. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that thing, but we feel ourselves that because we're using things from the world that we're not real creatives. But that's exactly what creatives do.
Yep.
So that's like, that is a fun exercise, because you can also feel kind of like you're playing Sherlock.
Yes.
You know,
and you're right. Like, it's so much when you're writing as well. Like, it's good practice for things like description and character building things, because it's so much like, I do it sometimes because, you know, whenever you say in writing, here's a rule, like, you've broken it at some point, like, but like, it's so much more impactful rather than saying that person had blonde hair to say, oh, they bought like loads of clothes at Primark, or, you know, they've got a bag from Bloomingdale's or something. Like, it gives you an impression of who that person is without even having to describe a physical thing. Or like you say, like, they think of X perfume or their body odor. That's much more impactful than saying they have blue eyes. Because like, eyes can be nice, and I think that if you're writing romance specifically, a lot of communication happens between the eyes. There's a lot of like magic that can happen in a look. But if you're trying to describe a person, like, the chipped nail polish is a perfect example, because it gives you more of an idea of what that person is, and you don't even have to be specific. There's a big difference between a woman or a man who wears nail polish and it's chipped, or if it's absolutely pristine and manicured. Like, it tells you something about who they are without having to specifically say what it is they've done or do. And I love that kind of stuff. Like, there's a line in I'm not gonna say it because I'm gonna butcher it, but there was like a gorgeous line I remember reading in Luke's book, My Dog Shit.
Cash. Yeah. My dog shits cash. I can say it.
Thank you.
I just
yes,
realized
I can't, because I've got the little one.
You barely can't hear me. You've got headphones in.
Yeah. Oh, that was it. It was like, she looked at me like an unread email.
Yes.
And I was just like, oh, that's a juicy line. I love that, because again, like, it's telling you about the look without telling you about the look, but like that feeling when you have an unread email, you're like, oh, yeah, there's a lot to it. But yeah, like, those kind of exercises, the idea of ideation being a muscle is 100% true. Like, anything that's new, anything you haven't done before, starts off with some kind of difficulty. And it's the whole confirmation bias principle of, for example, if you're going to buy a car and you're suddenly like, I might buy a Fiesta, suddenly you'll notice how many Fiestas are on the road. Same with
pregnant
Teslas,
women everywhere. When I was pregnant.
Pregnant women. Oh yeah, I remember that
I couldn't
one.
tell you the last time I've seen a pregnant woman.
Just kids everywhere as well.
Yeah.
Just like tiny little kids. That side of things, and obviously like dogs and pets, like anything like that. The minute you start thinking about something, the minute your brain starts going like, oh, this is something we need to put energy in and pay attention to. So if you allow yourself to start thinking of ideas and pushing them together, like, that does get easier and easier and easier. And you know, that's different time for different people. But sorry, I just had a total brain fog meltdown.
That's okay. I was going to quickly follow up on that, on what you said anyway. And even if, like, the idea of going out to a coffee shop or a park by yourself and writing feels like too big of a task right now, because I'm very aware, because of like my anxiety levels and everything, that like sometimes like the first step is like the 12th step for me. So if that's too much, find the friend, the friend that you can let the crazy out to, and go for coffee with them and do that exercise. But as a conversation, a quiet conversation. And because I'm telling you now, it's fun. It starts off tedious. They're wearing a brown blazer. Okay, okay, well, why brown? What do you mean, why brown? You're telling me that out of all the colours in the spectrum, they chose brown. Why? Well, maybe there was only brown blazers. Cool. So why did they just get that blazer? Why didn't they like? It's just the smallest, stupidest shit that turns into, well, clearly they have like they're clearly an incel that is making a stance on the fact that they don't get pride. They don't get straight pride. Like, and it all comes from they're wearing a brown blazer, and it's bullshit. Like, but this is the thing, we're not trying to actually get to the root of who this person is in real life. We're playing games. And, you know, it's like you said about the eyes, like telling me that someone's eyes are blue. Okay, cool. Telling me that, like, you know, you ran into a teenager while you were jogging, and they fell over, and as you helped them up, you noticed that their eyes were like older than they are. That tells me something.
Yes.
You know, that like their ice blue eyes were haunted by blah 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 whatever. You know, that's something that's interesting. But just being like, they had blue eyes, cool, got it, blue eyes. Except I don't. I've already forgotten because I don't care.
Yeah, and springing off that, but kind of just as a general principle, when you are trying to improve ideation and come up with, and again, this goes right back to the top of this conversation, which is how do you come up with good ideas? Like, you don't know that any idea is going to be good when you start. God, that's the magic of it. But like, as with what we're talking about with that first draft, allowing yourself to come up with bad ideas. And again, like, objectively, no idea is good, no idea is bad. Especially
aim for bad ideas,
especially in seedling form. But by allowing yourself to not always come up with ideas that you think are amazing and just writing them down, like, you start to peel away at the layers of onion until you can kind of get to the core of something. So if you're trying to come up with a good idea, I recommend write 20 ideas. Just whatever it is you're going for. So obviously, like, I'll speak from the horror way. Like, I'll come up with 20 ideas of like a horror story, and they could include monsters, situations, isolation, all that kind of stuff. And I'll try and make them as different as possible in each scenario. One of those is going to appeal to me. Like, again, like, so much of this stuff is universal and springs through like all the things that we've said before. Because when we were talking about short stories, the Ray Bradbury challenge, write one short story a week. They're not all going to be good, but one or two are going to come out of that are, they stick with you and they're awesome and you're very, very happy with them. And it's the same with ideas. The more ideas you come up with, the higher the likelihood that you'll have a good idea. Quote, good idea, or an idea you're at least happy with and hungry enough to pursue into a longer form story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, as with like what we talk about, creativity as muscle, all that kind of thing, when you first start, like, I'm going to use the gym as the metaphor. Like, when you first start at the gym, you don't understand what half the machines are for. You don't understand why. And you stay away from the scary, like, closet of torture. And you just go to like the treadmill and, like, you know, a machine that is very clearly labeled as, okay, this is a sit-up machine or whatever. You very quickly do the things and then you leave. And then the next time you go, you might spend a bit longer and you'll explore out. And it's the same, like, with your brain. It's the same kind of mechanics, which is why I'm a big, like, touter of flows of consciousness, like you were saying about the reason that you enjoy being a, like, pantser is you get into this flow and, you know, you can do the thing. Well, one of the ways you can, like, tap into that kind of flow is by writing for 10 minutes every morning. I mean, it doesn't have to be every morning, but like, just sitting down for 10 minutes or 5 minutes if 10 minutes is too much, putting your pen on the page. And I've said this before, and you just start writing. And if you cannot think of what to write, that's what you write. And even if it ends up being Bart Simpson lines of, I cannot think of what to write for 10 minutes, you did what you're supposed to do. Come back the next day, because eventually you will get bored of writing that. And then you'll start saying, oh, I'm so bored of writing this.
And you write that for 5 days.
Yeah, the pen does not come off the page for 10 minutes. And it keeps moving. So that's something. Something that I came across a while ago, and I can't for the life of me remember the YouTuber that I was watching do this, but I know that the idea is not unique to this person, is write in the style of one of your favorite authors, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, whatever. So, like, but authors that are very voicey. So, like, for example, Gaiman, is a big one. I haven't read any King, but from what I imagine, he's got a very particular, like, that you're reading King.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You don't get to
Ray
be your own
Bradbury,
genre without,
Clive Barker,
exactly.
Nick
So
Cutter.
take authors that you really like the style of, and then write your journal. At the end of the day, write what's happened to you as if you were Neil Gaiman. So try to emulate that style by just telling the truth of your day, because then that takes any pressure off, like, ideas, because you know what's happened to you, but you're practicing this creativity of, like, looking at things a slightly different way, because Gaiman wouldn't say, and then I sat on the bus. You practice with this stuff, and then when you're kind of comfortable with that, you can add on. This is one of my favorites. Like, you start, because you'll start to find your own voice, your own style in those different kind of voices. That's how we work. And then you write the truth of your day with monsters or fairies or murderers. So, like, you replace every single one of your co-workers with a different type of monster, but you keep everything truthful, but you add that stuff.
Yeah.
And like, that's the experience part. You're using your real experience and you're combining it with, but what if they were monsters?
Yep. Can I highlight as well, because what you just said is one of my big points here, is the what if principle.
Yeah, what if?
So all ideas start with what if.
Mm-hmm.
What if a giant shark got out on the coast and attacked a bunch of boats? What if someone brought back dinosaurs and created a theme park out of them? What if...
Sorry,
Go on.
I love this game. So to say, like, what if dreams were reality for everybody in them but me?
Oh,
what
wow.
if the reason
Jeez.
like, what if the reason windows open outward is because they're horrendously claustrophobic? What if my dog's a devout Catholic? Like,
what if a Saint Bernard got rabies and I was trapped in a farm? Like, everything springs from what if, and again, like, with what if, you can come up with, like, what you believe are strong ideas, what you believe are not so strong ideas, and it's just a case of, like, again, 20 things what if. There's so many I want to say, but again, like, some of them involve things that I'm not exactly appropriate with present company. But like, that what if principle is huge. And then, like, two more that I use a lot is number one, what's the worst thing that could happen? And sometimes by literally saying to yourself, what's the worst idea I can write? That doesn't mean, like, dramatically bad. That just means, like, how terrible an idea can you write? Because from that will spring something. I've literally, I don't think I've told you this. I literally saw a trailer. I went to go see Knock at the Door last week, which is the film version of the novel by Paul Tremblay, Cabin at the End of the Woods. The film was fantastic, really, like, spot on with the book. But, like, there was a trailer beforehand for a film, and the film's literally called Cocaine Bear. And it's based on a true story about a bear that got into a whole, like, batch of coke and started going mad in the woods. Like, that's an idea that made it to film. That's now happening. Like, that's not a good idea. No. But, like, it is.
It also is, because it's made it into film.
Yeah. And so what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, what's the worst idea you could think of? And then another one, again, I'll be careful of what I say, but, like, idea copulation. Or, like, marrying ideas, because when me and Luke, then this was just for people who are unaware, this is, like, my first sort of experience into novels, was a co-writing project with Luke Condor. We looked at They Rot, and the original conception for that was, what if The Last of Us crossed with Dead Space, which is like the two video games, and the idea became vastly different to any of that. But that was the original question that we kind of posed, was like, well, what if this met this? And the idea, like, the very, very early idea with that, for that book, which was a post-apocalyptic book, was that it was going to be set in space, and it was going to be a space engineer trying to, like, do something or other to, like, get back in the zombies and things. Now it's a story based in England on Earth about, again, zombies and things, but, like, that was the original conception of that, was like, what if this met this? And then from that, we worked and we sprang and we tried different things and got it to where it is. So sometimes, like, it's fine, like, again, coming back to this idea of stereotypes and things that are already established, like, what if Jaws met Bridget Jones's Diary? I know I'm going to Jaws a lot lately. It's just right there. Why not? What if Law-Abiding Citizen met Two Men and a Baby? Three-Minute Baby, whatever that film was. Like
Yeah.
you can do this, and it's okay to play with these, because whatever that end result is going to be, it's going to be unique to those two things. And even if someone's come up with that idea before, going back to experiencing, it's still your story, and it's still new and different.
Yeah. And it's often like combining two things, like the result is stronger than the sum of its parts. Or sometimes hilariously you'll combine two things and then realize you've solved both of the problems and don't have a story, but that's also hilarious. Like, for example, if like a time traveling fairy came down and ripped Hamlet out of Hamlet and ripped Othello out of Othello and did this and dropped them in, those stories would both end happily, because Othello acts like too quick and Hamlet acts too slow. So like Othello would be like, I'm sorry, dead ghost dad, you said that your brother murdered you and then shacked up with your wife. BRB, just gonna go shank that dude. Like, over. Hamlet would be like, well, it's really important to think things through, as Iago's like, no, honestly, she's cheating on you. And that, like, it would, like, both stories would resolve themselves. So it's like you either get like incredible drama or something that kind of resolves itself, but that in itself is a fun story.
Let's just remind the world that there is a film in existence called Rubber, and that film is about a car tire with psychic abilities that can blow up things with its quote vision, and to this day might still be either the best or the worst film I've ever watched. I can't describe it. It's an experience you have to do for yourself. But I do remember watching that film and being like, I don't know whether that's like incredible or totally atrocious, but like I was hooked. It's a tire. Hold on, let's take a second. It's a tire with sentience. Like a Michelin tire fits on a car. By itself, there aren't three other tires. There's no other like metal work. No, there's no dolphin sprockets involved. It's just a tire.
There never is, mate.
And that's 2 hours of cinematic glory about a tire.
Yeah. And here's the thing, right? When we talk about good and bad ideas, this is my point I was making earlier. It could be the worst idea ever thought of.
Cocaine Bear.
But they're both films. They're both products that you can watch. So are they the worst ideas? Like, stop judging yourself so harshly all the time. And like, I think, let me just, character study, writing the style, flows of consciousness, flash fiction, obviously. This goes into what we was talking about last time.
Play with short ideas. Yeah,
just like go onto Pinterest, Google, whatever, type in writing prompts. Use one of those, like writing prompts, someone else's idea. Use that and you'll come up with your own idea to use that. Like, again, I'm just going to say it, creativity does not happen in a vacuum. And just because you're using something else to like inspire you, that doesn't make you a fraud. That makes you the same as every other creative person. And a lot of the time using these things and writing in different styles is how we find our own style. So like, stop giving yourself a hard time, please and thank you. But I'd like to wrap up my kind of points and things on this, and just say two things. Number one, it's supposed to be messy.
Yes.
Right? It's supposed to be messy. My son, I think it was 2 days ago, completed the song Believer by Imagine Dragons on Extreme on Beat Saber. Now, when he first started playing that, he could barely get through it on easy. And it was very messy for me because I had to deal with the tantrums. But then he started to understand that it is about growth. It's about going again. It's about learning like the routines, the structure of the song, how it flows, the rhythm, all of those things. And then once you've got one, then you can add in intricacies and all the rest of it. Because I know what you're thinking. Sam, you talk about Beat Saber. It's a very good for an example for what I'm trying to say. It's supposed to be messy. Embrace the suck. It's supposed to be messy. And what I will like end with on my part is this. You already know how to write a story.
It's already in you.
Title of your sex tape. Sorry. But you already know how to write a story. Whether you have ever written one word of like creative writing or not, you know how to write a story. We all know beginning, middle, and end, sure. But you know beyond that. You have read books, or you have watched film or theatre, or you have observed an argument with a couple in like a pub. You know how story works. You just don't know maybe the terminology for it, so you don't feel like you're a real person that can say real stories. Fuck terminology. I still don't know half of it, but I like have got to the point where I'm confident in myself, in my experience as in life experience, because I've had more than most people like should ever have in a lifetime. And also knowing that the things that I have trained in outside of writing, and I don't just mean acting, although that's helped me incredibly, but no matter what your job is, there will be parts of the skill set there that you can bring into writing. And if you don't believe me, drop a comment with your job and I will give you a fucking full explanation as to how you can use what you've done in writing. So you already know how to write a story. So stop putting that idea in your head. Like, you know how to do it. Now go out and like judge people and write it down and get some characters going.
Thus spoke Samasutra. I love it. I love it. And I guess like from my side, I'd like to wrap up. I've got to give a couple of like real tangible examples of where some stories have come from. I've already mentioned They Rot. That was Dead Space meets The Last of Us originally. It's not where it ended up being, but that was the inception of that story. That was that idea. Similarly, because we wrote 2 books at the same time alongside each other. The other book essentially was Flatliners, with that film that had like Kevin Bacon and stuff, and it was like dipping into the line between life and dead. And that's Flatliners kind of meets zombie inspiration. So that was that one. When Winter Comes was an idea that came in 2017 in a writers group that I was in. I can't remember what the prompt was, but like I've just got like a note in a notebook somewhere that literally says like, what if a blizzard, like a freak blizzard, hits a town in northern Alaska where they're isolated from everything, and you've got this band of essentially teenagers, very like Stand By Me, but it's like band of teenagers have to go out on survival. And originally there were no monsters. Like originally I had like 2 parents that were like a mum and a dad that were going to like get involved. And it shaped and it weaved and it twisted, and now it's got monsters and all this other stuff. But like it started from just that idea, and I jotted down like 5 kids' names, and then 3-4 years later actually started to write the beast. The Nowhere Line, which is the one that I'm kind of in the process of doing a lot of stuff with at the minute. Sorry. Thank you.
It's so good.
The idea for that sprang from just seeing a piece of like a pre-made cover. It was just a train like on a track like at night with sort of skulls along the side of the track, and it was just gorgeous, like spider webs and things, just abandoned train. And I was like, well, what if there was a train that when someone boarded it, all their family were on it? But no, I'm trying to think how it appeared to me in my head, because it was essentially this really weird, it was kind of like weirdly freaky gaming inspired, of like a train that you're riding on, you're not aware that everyone's dead. Like you see them as real people, but then you have these flashes of like, and I wanted to write this kind of like lunatic madness of a guy being on a train, and it came from that idea. And then pulled back from that and was like, okay, well, what's the heart of this story? And it became, well, what if a man and woman were about to get married, and we start this story with a man in his groom suit in the middle of a forest, and a bride sat on a log just facing away, because immediately the minute you plant a reader in there, like, what's the question here? Like, what's the situation? And it just developed from there. And now it's totally like, some of those elements are still in there, but it's this totally different thing. So again, that was the birth of an idea. And like, ideas are meant to change. Like everything gets better with new information, with new experimentation, with feedback, with all that kind of stuff. Like it twists and it adapts. But yeah, they all started like from what ifs, from marrying ideas, and from just like, you know, playing about with scenarios that I thought would be fun.
Yeah, as you give yourself permission to play with an idea, your brain will think of a better one. It's a very annoying thing, but it's also an amazing thing.
Yeah, well, I had 3 false starts with Nowhere Line, just trying to like get that idea rolling, and then like add a few more extra elements. Same with When Winter Comes. It wasn't until I added the monsters that I was like, right, now I've got a story.
Well, like Heir to the Universe, the novel that like is in edits at the minute, that started off from an idea I had as a traumatized child. So I used to go every night. I would like get into my bed, and I had one of those old headboards that's kind of like plush with the little buttons in it that dips down. Do you know the type? Yeah. And I would pretend that each one of those buttons was an actual button. So like one was a force field, so nothing could get to me. Like I could get out of bed if I needed to, but no one could get in. One of them would make it fly, one of them would turn it into a submarine, one of it, and like it became this whole thing. And then so that's where it started in my head. I was like, oh, what if like it's this magic bed that can transport somebody somewhere? And now it is about a goddess trying to get back home to save the entire fucking universe, and at one point they get on a bed and it takes them somewhere. Like it's now a nod to the original idea at that moment.
Yeah. And some people might go, well, it has elements of Bedknobs and Broomsticks. It's a different story.
Yeah, it isn't, but fair play. Bedknobs and Broomsticks, it's fucking like, that's a good story, mate.
Sorry. Awesome.
Nettle tea? What?
Nettle tea?
Nettle tea, sorry.
Oh, okay.
She makes them, it's either nettle tea or nettle soup, I can't remember. It was the first time I'd ever heard of that. I was watching it as a kid and I was like, but wouldn't it sting your mouth?
Yes. You got anything else to add?
No, I don't think so. I'm like, I've written my notes down. I'm pretty happy with them. I'll just very quickly again say, so the idea is take yourself out for a walk and do a character study on a real person. Write your like journal in the style of a different author. Write your journal but with monsters or with aliens or whatever. So like tell your tale truthfully, but like replace elements of it with, you know, craziness. Flows of consciousness are a great way to get ideas. Flash fiction, go on to like Google and just type in writing prompts, and then, you know, you're away. And the what if game, like you were saying, like the what if game is brilliant. And then just, yeah, again, you already know how to write the story. You just have to believe it.
No idea is good or bad.
Yeah, no. Not for creativity.
No.
There are some very bad ideas in the world. But the thing is, it's subjective. Like some people want that wall.
My point. This is my point.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, we'll round it off there. I should have said this at the top of the episode, but one thing that I did want to announce that people can sign up to and get involved. I have, by the time this episode airs, I will have officially launched my brand new 6-month coaching program. So I call it a coaching program, but it's really like it's a comprehensive deep dive course / coaching / all of the things. And so this is called Zero to Author. And essentially for 6 months, I'm taking a very small group of hungry authors from ideation all the way through everything that is part of the process, all the way through to publication, alongside me, all together, bit by bit, working through the puzzle. And I've said this on like the webinars and things that I will have run by now, but like this is a program that I am literally giving my everything into. So I am giving you everything that I have behind the scenes. All parts of my process are involved in this, with the intention that at the end you'll be able to publish confidently a book. And I really, really stress this idea of confidently, because I know that like people can struggle through all the different mechanics of writing a book, of publishing, of business, of formatting, of editing, of cover design, all that kind of stuff. Like there's enough advice out there to go like, I could make a book happen. And trust me, like I've known people that have. But to be able to confidently write a book and confidently publish with everything optimized as it needs to be to give your book the best chance at success that it can have.
While still encompassing all the things like your life, and your work and your family and your romance and whatever it is. Because good luck being confident in any area if the other areas are telling you that you can't do something. Exactly.
Like it's a way to become the author that you want to be, that is sustainable for you in the long term, so you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm an author, very, very confidently. And so if you want to find out all about that, because
of course you do. Sorry, I'm very excited about this. I've seen the structure and it makes me very happy. Sorry.
Yeah, and to be fair, people are already taking the spaces. So like it's over at activatedauthors.com/author, and you can find all the information there. But I will say, just to date this, we are the 23rd of February. This will go live on the February. Which means that it'll likely only be open for like a week or two before I close it and spaces are gone. So if you want to get involved, like I say, activatedauthors.com/author, and I will essentially handhold you through publishing a book over the next 6 months. So Bam, that's it. Any last words from you, Sam, before we wrap up?
Just that I'm really proud of you, and like this program that you created, I think is incredible. And I think that like it's going to really help people, because it's one thing to know how to, you know, write and publish and that kind of stuff, but like you say, it's another thing to actually have that confidence. But also, like as I said, I've seen the structure of it, and I've seen
it's a lot of work.
Yes, so much work, so much work. But it's not just that, like it's so you, because it's about so much more than publishing a book. Like, yes, that is like the aim of the workshop, and the
program.
Thank you, the program. But it's also going to help you with confidence in different areas of your life, and understand like what it takes at different points, and how to draw like boundaries with your mother, or like you know, different things like that. And I'm really super incredibly proud of you, and I'm very excited for the people that you're going to be taking through. And I would very much like get on it, because spaces are already going, and like the webinar hasn't even gone yet. So
yeah, let's do it. Awesome. All right, then we'll wrap up and say a massive thank you to you, the listeners, for tuning in. We appreciate you and the time you choose to spend with us each and every week. And as always, if you're looking to level up your writing and activate your author career, head on over to activatedauthors.com to find out about our community, our resources, and everything else we've got going on. One more time from myself and from Sam, we will see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Activate your energy.